This next one will never be a hit.
When people talk about the 1970s, they usually mention glam rock, wild fashion and larger-than-life personalities. There were also platform boots, glitter and absolute chaos. And then there was this guy, a quiet man at the piano, wearing a flat cap, looking like he'd just wandered out of a school photo from 1935. This is the story of Gilbert O'Sullivan, a man who made some of the saddest songs ever written sound strangely comforting, and whose journey runs right through the very un-rock and roll town of Swindon. Before we head further with the story, here's a word from me, your YouTube host.
Hi, I'm John and welcome to John's Box, my YouTube channel, and to this, the 11th of 20 in the editions, famous Swindonians, dead or alive. The one we're going to feature today is alive, born in 1946, no other than Gilbert O'Sullivan, who wasn't actually born in Swindon, but is very much a part of Swindon, which he calls his home. And by the way, so far in the series, the following have been featured, some of the following. In the last edition, back in October, it was Edith Bessie New, who was Swindon suffragette. John Frankham, the jockey, has been featured. David Howe, the professional golfer. Ralph Bates, novelist, writer and journalist, as well as also Sir William Arthur Stanier, who was a GWR engineer, and the one and only Rick Davis of Supertramp, who does have a connection with Gilbert O'Sullivan. That's been the most popular video by far in this series, with over 3,000 views there. There's also been Diana Dawes as well, David, Murray John, and those are the only ones who come to my mind right now. So before we delve further into the video with the audio video part with my voiceover, I'd like to give you some information about Gilbert before we move on. I'm going to use my notes here that I've made about him. As already mentioned, he wasn't actually born in Swindon, but he moved to the town aged 7 in 1953 with his parents, though his father died quite early. He lived in the same housing estate as me in Walcott East on Frobisher Drive, but he moved away from Swindon in 1967. He arrived in Swindon in 1953 together with the many Irish people who decided to come over to England at that time, not only to Swindon, to other parts, given the fact that Ireland was a particularly poor country at the time, and the Irish had large families. The same was in Gilbert's case, or rather Ray's case, because he was actually called Ray. So when he moved out of Swindon, I was only 2 years old, but I must have walked past his family home many a times. It's only about 500 yards from where I lived. He didn't like school. He went to St. Joseph's and then to Swindon Art College in the mid-60s, where he studied graphic design. That was at the Regent Circus base, and he played in a local Swindon band as drummer and vocalist. Was the best-selling solo artist in the world in 1972, outselling Elton John and Rod Stewart. He's always described Swindon as his home. He forged a strong relationship with Rick Davis of Supertramp, also from Swindon. His top hit was, or one of his top hits, or first hit, should I say, first number one, was Alone Again, which topped the charts for 6 weeks. But his first success was 3 years after he left Swindon, entitled Nothing Rhymed. That came out in November 1970 and got to number 8. in the charts. Claire was actually his biggest UK hit. In 1988, whilst living in Jersey, he had an album which he actually called Frobisher Drive. His mother and sister did live in that home, in that family home, long after he had left Swindon. He's visited Swindon on several occasions, notably in 2016, where he went to Swindon College for one show. He actually brought along one of his graphic designs, artwork to show to students, and he met up with bandmates after more than 50 years. Malcolm Mabbott, it's my handwriting. There's a photo of him from an Evening Advertiser article going back to November 2018, when he visited Swindon in 1971. I'll put that up. And he moved to London in 1971, where he worked as in a department store and sought to make a breakthrough, and he signed a contract with CBS Music. For now, he's left the music business, concentrates on his own music, is planning another album, which he's going to record at his home in Jersey. So that's more or less a summary, more or less a detailed summary of what you're going to find out else about him. And to come then, there's going to be a little bit more information about his early life, the Swindon connection, his breakthrough success, his style and influence, legal battles, later years, and his legacy. And then when you see me at the end of the video, I'm going to choose the next Swindonian to be featured in this series of famous Swindonians. So sit back and relax and enjoy the rest of what is to come about Gilbert O'Sullivan.
Before he was Gilbert O'Sullivan, he was Raymond Edward O'Sullivan, born in 1946 in Waterford. Not long after, his family moved to England and settled in Frobisher Drive, Swindon. Now, no offence to Swindon, but it's not exactly the first place you associate with global pop stardom. It's not Hollywood, it's not London, it's Swindon. But for a young Raymond, it was everything. This was where he grew up, went to school, and eventually attended art college. And somewhere along the way, he started writing songs. Not loud, rebellious, smash the system songs, but quiet, thoughtful, slightly awkward songs, which, to be fair, matched the vibe. Swindon wasn't just where he lived, it's where he became Gilbert O'Sullivan. The name itself sounds like a double act from the Victorian era, and that's not an accident. Gilbert came from W.S. Gilbert, while O'Sullivan kept his Irish identity front and centre. Then there was the look. While other musicians were trying to be effortlessly cool, Gilbert went in the complete opposite direction. Short trousers, flat cap, slightly puzzled expression. It was less rock star and more lost schoolboy who accidentally wandered onto a stage. And somehow it worked. Swindon gave him the space to figure all this out, to experiment, to be different without anyone really telling him not to. Because in a town like that, standing out isn't always easy, but it's very noticeable when you do. Eventually, he moved to London and teamed up with manager Gordon Mills, and this is where things started to take off. By the early 1970s, Gilbert O'Sullivan wasn't just making music, he was everywhere. Then came the song. Alone again, naturally. Now, on the surface it sounds gentle, calm, almost comforting, and then you actually listen to the lyrics and realise it's one of the most devastating songs ever to top the charts. Cheerful? Not exactly. Unforgettable? Absolutely. It became a massive international hit, reaching number one in the United States and selling millions of copies. Which is quite impressive for a song that essentially says, everything is terrible actually. But that was his gift. He followed it up with songs like Claire, which is warm and affectionate, and then Get Down, which proves he could be playful too. At this point, he was one of the biggest artists in the world. Not by shouting the loudest, but by being honest in a way that people didn't expect. Musically, Gilbert O'Sullivan sat in an interesting space. You can hear similarities to artists like Paul McCartney or Elton John. Strong melodies, piano-driven songs, that classic British pop sensibility. But there's something else going on. There's a kind of emotional honesty that feels almost uncomfortable at times. He wasn't afraid to write about loneliness or failure, or just feeling a bit lost. Which doesn't just sound like a great recipe for pop success, but clearly it was, because while other artists were busy being glamorous, Gilbert O'Sullivan was busy being real. And people connected with that. And then things got complicated. In the mid-1970s, he became involved in a serious legal dispute with his manager, Gordon Mills. This wasn't just a minor disagreement over a contract. It escalated all the way to the House of Lords, which is about as dramatic as legal battles get in the UK. He won the case, and it became a landmark decision that changed how artists' contracts were handled. So great news for musicians everywhere. Slightly less great for his career momentum at the time, because while all this was happening, the music world kept moving. Trends shifted, new artists appeared, and just like that, the spotlight moved on. But Gilbert O'Sullivan didn't disappear. He kept writing, kept recording, kept performing. And over time, something interesting happened. People started to come back to his music. New listeners discovered it, older fans rediscovered it. And those songs, those very honest, very human songs, still worked. Because the emotions in them never really age. You might not wear a flat cap and short trousers anymore. But feeling a bit lost? That's timeless. From Waterford to Swindon to worldwide success, Gilbert O'Sullivan's story isn't about chasing trends or reinventing the wheel. It's about doing something different and sticking with it. Even when it's quieter, even when it's a little awkward. Because sometimes that's exactly what makes it last. And it all started in Swindon. Yes, Swindon. Now it's back to me, your YouTube host, for a final word.
So there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you know anything else about Gilbert O'Sullivan which you'd like to share, maybe you went to school with him, by all means share that information in the comments, because your comments add to the content of this video. So the more the better. I'm sure there are some of you out there who know him or knew him personally whilst living in Swindon. If there's anything that perhaps I've misquoted or stated, then please tell me where I'm wrong. And I'm going to choose the next person to be featured in about the next few weeks perhaps. And it's going to be Heidi Alexander. Born in Swindon in 1975, she's the Member of Parliament for South Swindon. So yeah, I'm going to feature her. She used to be Deputy Mayor in London, and currently she's the Secretary of State for Transport. That's Heidi Alexander, to be featured in my next edition. Please support my channel. I'm over 1,000 subs. With your help, I can hit the 2,000 mark, hopefully in the not too distant future. There you have it. Thank you very much for sticking to the end, and see you again in another video on John's Box. Bye for now.
This next one will never be a hit.